I think I could pinpoint the problem here. There's a myth out there that Christianity is a threat to the Jewish people. It's only a myth, okay? I'm not saying that Jews never convert to Christianity, but honestly, how many Jews do you actually know that left Orthodox, even conservative Judaism for Christianity? I can maybe think of one. This has been blown out of proportion by counter-missionary rabbis to justify their existence. The audience of counter-missionary rabbis are not Jews caught in the church, because that's almost non-existent. It's people leaving the church. They're the ones who pay for their flights and give them donations all the time and buy their books. It's not Jews that are caught in the church. Jews are not caught in the church, okay? Now, like someone will say, well, I know one Jew here, there. That may be an exception to the rule, but it's not enough to build a whole movement around. This movement justifies its existence amongst other Jews in Orthodoxy, saying that they're there to save Jews from the church. All they're there to do is to collect a paycheck from Gentiles and poison the mind of Gentiles, and in turn not give that Gentile a viable religion to the religion that they just destroyed. Okay, so then these people who shun individuals who are eager to learn from their groups will use that as an excuse that, oh, because Jamal said that this was the wording they use, that you may be a rodef. So rodef just means like a pursuer, but what they really mean is that you're someone out to kill us, I guess in this sense, spiritually, because don't you know we're at war with Messianic Jews and Christianity? It's nonsense. Religious Jews are not at war with religious Christians or Messianic Jews, okay? With the exception of Michael Brown and a handful of Israeli Messianics, most Jews are atheists to begin with. Like, to think that a Christian missionary is going to convince a Jew who knows something about religion to join Christianity or Messianic Judaism is nonsense. It's a false war. It doesn't exist.
It does happen.
It obviously does happen. Well, children die of COVID-19 also, okay? But the chances of a kid dying of
we got to reopen the economy. You know that.
Because of the exception, you're not going to change the rule. If they really wanted to do something worth a damn, they would focus on bringing Jews back from atheism, because that's the bigger threat, not Christianity. You know how many Jews are atheists? Over 54% of born ethnic Jews identify as atheists, not agnostic, atheists. Now, born Jews, how many of them identify as Christian? Probably less than 1%. You know how fake this war really is? And the biggest zealots it creates are former Christians, former Gentile Christians, who then make it harder for their brethren, their Gentile brethren, to come to Judaism in the first place. Is a fake war invented by counter-missionary rabbis to justify their existence and justify the big budget they claim to have. Okay?
I've seen it happen, Rabbi. I see Christians, I see Goyim who dress up like Orthodox Jews, and they prey on the Jewish people. They go in, they come in.
How many of them convert Jews to Christianity?
But it's a disgusting practice that they do, that Christians do.
Why is it disgusting? Like,
because Jews don't do that. You think Jews dress up like Christians and go into churches to get them out of Christianity to Judaism? No, Jews, they leave them alone.
No. What are you talking about?
But they go into our synagogues. I've seen them in my own neighborhood.
What do you think counter-missionary rabbis are? They do the same thing missionaries do. They go in to a group amongst Christians and they destroy their faith and they bring them into the Noid movement. That's the same thing. That's the same thing that a Christian would like to do with Jews. Now, what's the difference? There's absolutely no difference, right?
Okay, so why play the game though? Why wear a big black Barcelona hat and tzitzis and saying
the people who wear black hats and happen to believe in Yeshua are also convinced of the oral law and they love Jews and Judaism. Well, they don't do it like a terrorist dressed like a Haredi Jew trying to blow up a bus. Okay.
Well, that happens too. Muslims do that too. They dress up like Jews and they kill people
because they're trying to kill people. But this Christian person or Messianic person loves Jews. He's trying to get around Jews and he's going to try to convince.
Right, he loves Jews so much that he's going to come to us, run up to our face and say, why don't you believe in your Messiah? Why don't you believe in your Yeshua? Well, let me tell you something. He's not my Messiah.
I understand.
It's a disgusting thing, Rabbi. It happens to me every day.
Why does it have to be disgusting? You can just say, no, thank you.
Rabbi, every day I get comments on my channel. You're blind to your own Messiah. Why don't you believe in Yeshua HaMashiach? I'm sick of it. Why do they have to do that? I don't go to their Christian YouTube channel and tell them that JC is a fake God, fake man God.
Every time you try to disprove Christianity, well, you're doing the same thing. All you have to do is tolerate it and say, no, thank you. Why is it that we have to participate in this shutdown cancel culture?
Tolerating it is that they have their own YouTube channel that they are labeled to spew their own filth.
That's not tolerating.
This is a kosher group. Like if a Christian came in here and I wouldn't allow that come in here and mess with Wade and mess with me.
Non-kosher, like if they're both teaching Torah and some Chabad guy wants to believe that his Rebbe is Mashiach and a Messianic wants to believe his Rebbe is Mashiach. And if you don't like it, you say no, thank you.
Well, it's a difference between a Jew teaching Torah and a Goy teaching Torah. I mean, you got to say.
What's the difference? There is no difference. There is no difference between me teaching Torah and I converted to Judaism and a Gentile teaching Torah if they're both teaching from the same book. So what's the difference? Like, I don't give a crap about the title. Okay, we don't need safe spaces. I don't want to segregate the internet between Lubavitchers, Messianics, Breslov. No, Torah is what unites us. Then if some Messianic comes to me, I'll be like, no, thank you. I don't believe it. Fine. Why does that person has to be canceled out of existence? I'm not against Jews being missionized. I'll tell you right now. It'll help us be able to answer. If you keep your kids away from the field, from the dirt, from playing in the mud, he's not going to build up those antibodies. And that's what we're trying to build up here. Intellectual, spiritual antibodies that if they ask you, why don't you accept Yeshua as the Messiah? It's going to force you to research. What the heck is a Messiah? What's taught in Judaism? What did my parents believe? What religion was I born into? You're going to stop people from asking all these questions if you just cancel people off and you write them off and block them from groups.
I love this discussion because that is actually my same approach as well. We are totally surrounded by Christians, and my children, we have always talked about, well, why don't we believe this? And my theory, and I found this to be true so much of the time, is that truth wins out. If you stick with the text, if you start discussing evidence, it's an opportunity. Even if they come in as counter-missionaries and all of this, the more that you engage, the more that you discuss, the more they will find that there are questions to which they don't have satisfactory answers. And that doesn't mean you need to condemn or rub it in their faces, but it's that dialogue opens the path and opens the doorway. I can't tell you how many people I have seen where that was one of the first steps. So it's all an opportunity.
Another example on how the counter-missionary movement is fake, being that missionaries target irreligious Jews to make them either Messianic or Christian, and not religious Jews necessarily, should get us not to care. You know why? Because better a religious Christian than a secular anything. I wish that every atheistical Jew tomorrow converted to some monotheistic belief system, that whether it's Christianity, Islam, I want them to bow down to something but themselves. This notion that we rather keep secular Jews secular and not Christian is stupid, okay? Because even today, the biggest friends of the Jews are not atheists. They're Christians. So why would a religious Jew think he has more in common with a secular Jew than a religious Messianic Jew? It just doesn't make sense. I don't think it's been thought out much.
My question is, why isn't the Jewish community, or if they are, why aren't they on a large scale going to the Jewish people that are secular, and why aren't they trying to coach them, trying to encourage them?
They are doing it. It's just they're not very successful at it. I was an outreach worker in Jerusalem for 5 years, doing outreach for kids in Hebrew University. Most Jewish programs in colleges, whether it's Hillel, is not really geared in loving God and hating sin and ethical moral training, but it's more like your grandma would be very happy if you dated a Jewish girl. Come to this Jewish dance, come take a trip to Israel and they'll get you drunk on Ben Yehuda Street and they'll try to put you in some seminary. It's kind of purposeless. Now, groups like Chabad have a different approach. I would say that Chabad is probably the most purposeful Jewish group out there. I don't agree with their purpose, but they're actually shooting for something, and that's the Messiah and the Messianic age. And so that does make people interested. Again, I don't support the cause, but people are looking for a cause. And just marrying somebody Jewish to make your mother happy is not a cause. And that's typically how Jewish outreach is done today. And I think that Jews could learn a lot from Christians in this area on how to win people. I'm not saying, asking them, if you die today, do you know if you're going to heaven? I mean, getting them to look into their life and kind of analyze their actions and see who they've hurt during their life and how they can improve and how they can make this world better, and confronting sin. These words are never mentioned by Jews, unfortunately. I mean, some, yes, there's an exception to every rule, but the bulk of outreach is not like that. It's because Jews live the average religious Jew lives this purposeless existence that if you're not Jewish, then there's nothing for you. And God is very mono-redemptive. Redemption is only for people who are ethnically born Jewish. And this is why people opt out for remaining Jewish, because it doesn't mean anything. It's rare that you find rabbis speak about ethics and morality and making the world a better place. And the ones who do speak on this aren't very religious to begin with. They're like the Reform and the Conservative. And you guys mentioned Reform and Conservative. I worked in a conservative synagogue for about a year. The congregants are 70 plus. They're dying out. And the conservative synagogues are full of Reform Jews, and the Reform synagogues are full of atheists. It's a dire, dire situation. The only group in Orthodoxy that's really growing are the ultra-Orthodox Haredim in Israel that will live in a bubble, and these aren't the ones you want speaking in your behalf. It's a sad situation. There are segments of Judaism out there that are trying to change things. I want you guys to join that group.